Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dynamic Character Productions, another exit interview, and we are here with Austin. How are you?
I'm doing good. Excited to talk about my game,
Yeah, so sad it ended earlier than expected, but
right?
still glad to talk to you. And we are always joined by Alex and Lily. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello. I'm very excited for this exit. I will start right off the bat and say when you went out, a lot of us were just like, damn, if that didn't happen, we all of production was like, we think Austin might be the best positioned person on this cast right now. But that's Survivor, ain't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, going off of, I mean, not really going off of, but we've seen you kind of grow in this game. As Alex said, like a lot of us were super excited to see you play, and you really hit the ground running, it seems like, with the first challenge. Um, and we see you throughout the episode start to grow concern over your performance in the first challenge, especially seeing the other team struggle so much with that type of puzzle. How do you think that that impacted your game?
Um, I mean, I think it definitely had like an impact. Um, I think we obviously see me kind of throw myself under the bus at some points by bringing it up in front of people. I mean, I tend to think I'm like pretty self-aware, so that's why you see me talking about that in the very first confessional. Like obviously in the heat of the moment when I'm in that challenge, my main focus is literally just like solve the puzzle so that we can get immunity.
Makes sense.
And like you don't have time to think about like, is this gonna make you a target, you know? Especially with three tribes and you have five people, like you have nowhere to hide, and we didn't have the chance to like talk to any of our tribe mates prior to the challenge. So I was like, let's just win this freaking challenge. And then we have time to just kind of get to know each other. Cause the last thing I wanted was to like be the tribe that lost and then have to try to vote someone out, especially if I was the person that like screwed up the challenge and was the reason we lost. Because like to me, that's like such an easy way to go out in a mini for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you touched on it exactly. We have seen in a lot of previous games this type, even real Survivor, when you're still in these tribes, a lot of times people end up being mentioned or even go out because of their challenge performance or lack thereof. But it's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of a theme this season where, especially with Mike and then with Andrew, the first two boots, they were actually taken out because they were a threat to challenges. Um, how do you think, like, do you like the way that that kind of turned out? Were you surprised by it? Your general thoughts?
Um, it's hard because like this is my first game, so I don't really like have too much to base it off of. I mean, it's definitely interesting the way it played out, especially like for a mini. Like your challenges aren't like normal Survivor. You're not like it's not like physicality has like almost nothing to do with it. I mean, unless you're Ben and you're good with your feet, but um, or you have to do a wall sit or plank or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just I did like very little research going into this. I watched the previous season, um, mostly because I wanted to see like what there was for challenges because I didn't know like what to expect coming in. And I was like genuinely surprised at like all the different things that you can come up with just like some basic household material. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as like the challenge threat, I mean, I think it's a little off base, but
You solved a word puzzle and you're a nice guy, so you didn't
yeah,
get the
right.
jobs.
Yeah.
Then there we go.
Well, and speaking of challenges, I did want to know, like, just ask, what did you think your strength is? We see you solve a really like a hard scramble, especially for other people on the tribe. And then we see you after the merge win a type of social game
Mm-hmm.
challenge. So were you expecting to have done so well in the challenges in different formats?
I like I said, I don't really didn't really know like what to expect. Um, as soon as we like got into that first challenge, I was like, we had to like decide who was gonna do what based off of like the one word phrase. I like really didn't want to do the puzzle because I didn't even want to be the one that like screwed it up, you know. I know I'm like pretty good at puzzles and I felt pretty confident, but like when everybody else was like, yeah, puzzles aren't my thing, I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And then it ended up working out okay. But yeah, as far as the other challenges, like the social one that I ended up winning, I was kind of surprised that I ended up winning that one because like you've obviously seen that type of challenge on Survivor like all the time. And every single time I see it, I was like, this would not be my thing. Like I like 100% expected to be one of the first ones out. Also, that one just kind of ended up working in my favor.
Especially
and then like
did a lot of chopping too. Like you were giving people hits, but they remembered other people giving them hits and didn't get it back.
Yeah, I think my strategy going into that challenge was like I kind of wanted to like spread it out, so that like more people have at least a few hits versus piling all on one person. I mean, piling all on one person makes it easier for other people to just jump on and get that person out. But then you're like, I mean, you're hitting everybody, so they have a reason to hit you back. But if you're not like putting your focus on one person, then they don't necessarily have a reason to like hardcore retaliate.
Right.
So then when it came down to it, there was like only a few people left and everybody had a decent amount of hits. That way you're not waiting to put their first hit on someone like super late in the challenge. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with how I played in the challenge, but we also saw me like go out like super early in a few of them too. Like the one where we had to put the cup up against the wall with the ping pong ball. Yeah, I was out in like probably less than 10 seconds. So
yeah,
I think that was
not your shining moment.
No, but like it was kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess, because then I could kind of use that as like, hey, I'm not good at everything.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. And I think the way you played that coconut challenge is the way that you played the game, very like under the radar, but people still love to talk to you. I think one of my favorite scenes from the most recent episode is you and Sarah in a room and Sarah's just like throwing everything at you and you were just like listening and nodding your head and it was a good dynamic.
Yeah. Speaking of Sarah.
Yes.
You don't really get to see it from the edit, but Sarah was literally my ride or die this game. Like I was never writing Sarah's name down. And it just like it's so funny how it shook up because it was like everyone's perception was me and Jon. And then it's just like, nope, I'm with Sarah.
And we see that like there's conversations saying like Jon is like, I'm not tight to Austin. I don't know why people are saying we're this duo. And then V is like, I'm not tight to Lydia. I don't know why people think we're this duo. But, you know, Ben, your good old buddy, just weasels his way in and plants the seeds in everybody's mind.
Yep.
Yeah. And we see in the most recent episode, Lex mentions like this awkward moment where everybody hops in the same room. I don't know that we got to fully see it. So what were you thinking when this was going through? And were you worried that this was going to impact the vote, the whole duo situation?
So actually like going into tribal, I didn't know that like I was a part of this conversation. I was completely oblivious to the fact that Jon and I were getting like pitched as a duo. I mean, I obviously kind of expected people to like potentially target one of the four of us, like as the original Green Tribe. And probably more so like people were seeing myself, Jon, and Sarah as a trio. But like I was, like I said, I was completely oblivious to the fact that Jon and I were seen as a duo, which I found like really interesting because like the only time that like Jon and I were necessarily like alone was right after the swap, because then we brought in Sarah, came back at the next tribal after that, and then we merged. So I guess I was just like kind of confused as to like why we were getting seen as a duo, and that could just be like me like not being aware or like of people's perceptions, which I think obviously has something to do with it. But yeah, like to answer your question, like I came into that conversation like later than everybody else. I think Jon caught a bit of the conversation, and obviously like Lee and Video or Lee, Vee and Lydia. Oh my gosh, I pulled a Ben. Vee and Lydia were pretty much in that conversation the whole time, like as Lex was explaining it. And then Jon hops in, and then I hop in at the very tail end, and I like didn't even know what people were talking about necessarily, other than the fact that it was like duos. Didn't know that I was one of the ones that was like getting pitched basically. So then like we obviously go into tribal, and then like Lex like basically blows the whole thing up in front of everybody, and I'm like I'm just like straight faced this whole tribal because I'm like, what is going on? I'm so confused. And I guess like the reason I didn't like say anything or like try to like get it off, like get the target off of me, is because like the way that like Jon and Vee, like they both like so eloquently like described like the situation just in general about how like didn't feel like that was indeed the situation, that we were duos or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I don't think I need to like beat a dead horse here. Like, I think they explained it well. The vote's going to be what it is. And it ended up sending me home. So,
But yeah, I do think, like you said, like I think perception is something, and anything that can be perceived can be something as small as just the fact that it was you and Jon on that tribe at the beginning of the swap with Sarah on exile. And it can be very much perceived that you two ran the vote to send Selkirk out, where Ben like folds and lets Selkirk go, and then you get another Kirka person out, and then it looks more like, oh well, you two let it, and then you just have Sarah as like an attachment, like as a number, which is great for her in terms of like people aren't going to look at her. But it was almost like that's where both of you should have been, if that was like that was the true duo, because I found your relationship with each other I found so fun, because I felt it was like, without really talking about it, it was like almost intrinsically the fact that like this was your first game for both of you, and it almost like attracted you to each other as like, we need to stick to each other side by side, we want to have this full experience together. And so like you guys in the breakout rooms, it would be so interesting just like hearing the dynamic between both of you.
What could have been.
What could have been. Yeah. Well, and I want to back up a little bit. I know you mentioned that Sarah was your number one, which I love, but just wondering, when did that happen? Because I'm wondering, at the tribe swap, when, you know, it all kind of shook out the way it shook out, were you more excited or nervous for your new tribe mates? And then for the whole Sarah off in no man's land?
Yeah, I mean, like even just backing up to like the like first challenge, or like right after, when we all like had the chance to like actually talk and get to know each other, like I love my original Green Tribe. Like I love them to death. Like that was such a good group. And when we lost that second challenge, I was like, no, I don't want to vote anybody out. And that's what like makes it so hard. And like pretty sure I answered like every single one of Alex's questions at Tribals with, I like everybody. This is really hard. That's like been the theme for me. But like seriously, like being my first mini, I was just like so excited to like see that everybody like was super nice and everybody got along. And I mean that makes it harder to vote people out. But like I just got really good vibes from everybody. And specifically from Sarah and Lex. And you see me say that in the first episode. But yeah, I think there's something to say about like it being Sarah and I's very first game. And I definitely think that had a huge impact on like why we like kind of had a really good relationship and kind of linked up as the unseen duo. But yeah, I think it kind of goes back all the way to like the first episode. And then like as far as the swap goes, I think I was a little nervous. I mean, I was glad I had Jon at least, but like I said, I felt like closer to Lex and Sarah. So ideally, like when we first swapped, I was like, okay, I probably would have rathered have them, but like I can work with Jon. Like I had nothing against Jon at that point. And I was like,
except
if we can
for the fact that he had breakfast.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so can we talk about that?
Yes.
Everyone's giving me shit for this. I felt so bad because I didn't realize he was eating. I was like, this guy's just off the screen and doesn't want to get to know us. And then I was like, I'm getting breakfast. And I was like, oh, well, I was literally looking for literally anything on that first vote to be like, well, and I didn't want to like push it too hard, but it was just something that I like casually brought up to kind of like plant a seed in case anybody else wanted to latch on to that. It obviously ended up going Andrew's way, but
because he was throwing your name out.
Yeah, which also was almost a little bit of an overplay on Lex's part. I don't think it was necessary. Sarah and I were already thinking Andrew anyway, but that's neither here nor there. So, where were we?
I don't remember.
The swap.
Oh, the swap.
Okay.
You would have rather had
so
Sarah
like,
and Lex, but
as
Jon
far
was
as
okay.
strategy going into the swap, I was like, okay, I can work with Jon. I don't have anything against Jon. So like my main strategy was just trying to make sure that we could both get through that vote, so we could get Sarah back. So obviously, like your two options there are either taking out Emily, which doesn't really do us any good because then we end up in a 3-3. So I was like, we really need to try to pull in Emily. What I didn't know is that Emily thought Jon was pretty, and I had no influence on Emily's vote. So luckily, it ended up going our way. But that was all Jon.
It's a good thing you had Jon on your side.
Yeah.
If you had Lex or Sarah, who knows what would have happened?
Right? Yeah.
Did you personally maybe like that you lost the challenge because you would be getting Sarah back, or would you have rather just like safety is safety?
I mean, I think hindsight is 2020, so obviously I'm glad we lost the challenge in that sense, because then we did get Sarah. I think also though, like in my mind, like I really wanted to work with all of my original tribe. So once we saw like how the swap played out, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so nervous for Lex. And I just wanted him to be able to like work his way through his tribe so we could all get to the merge. So we could like work together again. So in that sense, like had Sarah gone over to that side instead, I think I would have been okay, hopefully. The only problem with that is if Sarah goes over to the other tribe, then we end up in the next round where both tribes go to tribal, and then we're in a situation where it's 3 purple, 2 green, 1 pink, which then we might have run into a problem.
Right.
Well, like
So,
the way, like the way I would see it is you would still be going 3-3 because Emily thinks Jon's pretty.
Touche.
But
she also could have gone with the numbers, and Austin could have been
right. And it really depends like how forceful the Kirka 3 were looking, and I don't think they would have necessarily been targeting you. I feel like they would have targeted Jon. So in that case, you would like hopefully then still find yourself getting to the merge with Lex and Sarah if they survived that round.
That round
very
is just a big hypothetical for you.
I know, but like it was like arguably like one of my favorite rounds. Like yeah. Just navigating the whole tribe swap was like really fun for me because that's like something I would probably be most nervous about, like going into real Survivor is trying to navigate like a swap and getting to know people. And that's what was so crazy about this game was that like we started off with 3 tribes, so you're only getting to know a few people, and then we swap, and you've got a few new tribe mates that you have to get to know, and then 2 rounds later, then we've got the merge. So it's just this constant like getting introduced to new people that you don't know.
I'm gonna plug a secret scene over on our Instagram. Austin talks all about this. So if you want to see it, Austin talk to, I want to say like Vee and maybe Sarah, about just getting to know new people over and over. Hit up our Instagram at DCP_org. Continue.
So you mentioned wanting to stick with your original tribe, and as you mentioned, 4 of you make it to the merge. At the merge, was your thought process like, this is my final 4, or were there other people that you started to gravitate towards as you know it kind of went on?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question because I really wanted to elaborate on this because I mean, obviously I wanted to stay loyal like as long as I possibly could, but I 1000% had intentions of, I'm sorry, Lex, but I had 100%, like 1000% had intentions of cutting Lex at some point, probably around like 6 or 5. Um, and probably potentially even Jon as well. The way I saw it, like Jon was playing the game that like I ideally wanted to play. I think we played like really similarly, but I think he had a better grasp on like the like social game. And he like did a lot better of a job of talking to people that weren't like in that he wasn't working with necessarily. And I think that realistically was probably the biggest flaw in my game. And one thing I kind of regret looking back is like not opening myself up to more options. Like as soon as we hit merge, like I didn't make the effort to really like talk to Lydia or Vee or any of them. So then like when it came down to like who are we going to vote out, they are kind of feeling iffy about me because they felt like they haven't gotten anything from me, like as far as strategic talk goes. Even if it's just saying like I'm open for options,
Yeah.
like I'm willing to work with you. And we see Jon like doing this really well with people and saying like I'm willing to cut one of the greens if that makes you guys feel more comfortable.
Well, I think the thing there is when Jon says it, there's a lot of truth behind it because you see it in the early confessionals.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm willing to cut Sarah over Lee if she doesn't tell me about what she saw on Exile. Like there was more of like, it's easy to send a like the slight lies of allowing people to come in when there's a lot of truth behind it. Where I also think what went against you was just the fact that you went through the first half of this game without ever seeing Vee or Lydia outside of challenges.
Yeah.
So you just spent like several hours with everybody else but those two people. So then it's really hard to, at that point, you get to the merge. Am I really going to try to create two new relationships when like we're in game mode now? This isn't about, oh, let me know about your cat. Let me know about where you're from. Like, oh, you're also from Seattle? Crazy. Lex is also from Seattle. Did you know that? It's like, it's hard.
Yeah. And I think like another thing that like goes with that is like we still had 4 people from our tribe left.
Yeah.
And then in combination, like not that I didn't have or wasn't open to other plans or other options or like getting rid of like Lex or Jon, like for example, but I think I appeared like very closed off to some of those other people that I wasn't necessarily working with just because I didn't make the effort to vocalize that I was open. And then in combination with just the fact that they see there's 4 green left and they probably just assume I'm closed off and don't want to work with them.
And maybe that's why you get that hit when you do, is because you're more closed off. So then the duo perception is higher with you rather than with Jon, who's saying like, hey, you know, maybe not right now, I won't work with you. Like his deal with Ben, where like I'm not gonna write your name down, but I'm also not gonna like vote with you, but you'll be safe. So
yeah, and let's talk about Ben just a little bit because we do see Ben vote for you multiple times. When you get to the merge and he wins immunity, did it ever cross your mind like maybe Ben and I can like short-term work together, or you know, can maybe we get together on a vote? Or was it like, this guy is not my guy and I'm not going to waste the few amount of minutes I have scrambling on Ben?
Definitely think it's the latter.
Yeah.
Love you, Ben, but yeah, I mean, someone votes for you 2 times in a row and you're in a mini. I mean, the format is just so, it's fast paced. I don't have time to sit there and try to like mend a relationship with someone that voted for me twice in a row, regardless of whether like the second time it was because he was spooked by,
did you know
like,
did you know that he was lying about that when he said, oh, Austin, I was spooked?
No. But even at that point, you know, I'm like sitting there and I'm like telling him out loud, like, it's okay, it's just a game. But you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, this guy's voted for me twice. Let's get him out of here, please. Please. And then
Somebody
he wins
else come
immunity the
in.
first round of the merge, and I was like, okay, about
Next
to come up
round.
with a different plan. But yeah, I don't see a situation in which like we could have been able to work together, even if it was just short term.
I do wonder because, as McKenna's mentioned, in my opinion, the only reason you and Jon as a duo and like your threat level is raised is because of Ben. Because, you know, for him, again, it's the same thing. I've already voted for him, so I can toss his name out as much as I want. We're never going to work together. So it would just be a big what if, I feel like, in my head for your game is, what if you went to Ben and was like, listen, let's be the under the radar duo and let's like,
I
and
feel
then
like they both would just say that. I'd be like, great idea, Ben, Austin. That's how that conversation plays out.
That's that.
No, and it's funny because I think it was right at the merge where, because Ben is the first person to vocalize Jon and I as a duo. And it's just as funny because there's this like back and forth like battle between Ben and I, and then I end up winning and getting him out first. But then like what he says and the seeds that he plants ends up being the reason I go home. And it's just like such a
Your
funny.
fates are tied.
I know.
Yeah, that's it. That's funny. And speaking of duos, we see that you have to pick a pair in the last challenge. And McKenna and Alex kind of free for all, like y'all got to figure it out. What were you thinking? Like we hear a lot of people talk about, you know, Lo said she picked you because you were really good in challenges and she wanted to work with you. Was that the ideal pair you would have picked for yourself?
If we were working together, yes. Not against each other. My whole thought process going into that, like picking a pair was like, I'm just gonna stay quiet and see what other people say. Because we had the majority, like a lot of obviously the available options are people that I'm working with. So I didn't want to like say, oh, Sarah or Lex or Jon, like let's be partners, because we all know I was already getting targeted as a duo at that point. Little did I know. So I definitely didn't want to like make it look like, you know, that I was even more closed off than I already appeared. I was really sad when you guys pulled that on us. I was like, I got Lo, we're gonna win this, and then oh, you're against Lo, and I was like, well, it's gonna be a struggle.
Hi, Lo. Well, when we see Lex win this challenge, what was your thought process with the whole duo talk last round going into this one? And just trying to figure out like who would have been your ideal person going out? We know that there's a lot of talk about Lydia and we'll get to her idol, but
you vote for me actually. So
yeah, and that's why I was like really looking forward to this episode. Because when the votes got read, I was really confused. Because literally the only name I heard that entire round was Vee.
Oh.
I don't know if I just like had like not very strategic conversations like the second half of that scramble or what happened, because at some point it changed to Lydia and I never knew about it. So then when I saw all of the Lydia votes, I was like, wait, what's going on? Because she plays her idol and I was like, okay, it's fine. I mean, she's just wasted an idol, because I thought everybody was voting for Vee. And turns out if everyone would have just done that, I wouldn't have gotten voted out.
So what I've noticed in some of the scrambles is certain people stay to specific rooms while like others like fluidly bounce. So I think it was made in one room that like a lot of people were in, and you just might not have. You might have been one-on-oneing with Sarah, which there's a long time where you're just chilling with Sarah and she's like, Lex comes in here.
And let's talk about, I had literally have never used Zoom prior to this. Like I didn't have the opportunity, I don't have the opportunity to work from home. And I had like no other reason to use it prior to this. So like was still kind of learning how to operate it and stuff. So yeah, I mean, like when I would get pulled for confessionals and then would move back to one of the rooms, I didn't know that you could like click on each room and see who was in there. So I was just joining a random room. And it like, so when I was coming out of confessionals, like that's what I was doing. Obviously, like after that, I was moving back and forth between rooms. But I wasn't like aware of who was in each room. I was just kind of like bouncing around.
Yeah.
And then that's when you ended up like with me in some kind of like awkward conversations where everybody's just sitting there silent because I was like, yeah, I don't know that I wanted to be in this room. I can't just leave after joining. So we're just gonna sit here.
Yeah. It is hard to navigate Zoom with trying to figure out what you want to do in your head as well, strategically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I feel like is hard for new players to really grasp is idols in a virtual game. How do you find your idol? And we see Lydia's gotten, some idol plays before. So did it cross your head before this vote that there might be another idol potentially in play?
I don't know that I can say one or the other that I remember it like crossing my mind. I mean, it's obviously something you like keep in mind. Pretty sure I say in like every single confessional when Ian asks me, "Oh, who do you think you'd want to target this round?" Every single confessional after her first idol play, I'm pretty sure I said her name. So like it was always on my mind. And then it's just kind of ironic that I end up going out on an idol play there. But yeah, I was like so new to this, to the fact that like I wasn't even considering like advantages and stuff. And it's funny because I did actually like I noticed the first one slide into my DMs, but I like just naively didn't think anything of it. And then I noticed like, the second one too with the capital letters, and it's just I was so
you're
so
the word scramble guy.
I know. I was like so in game mode at that point that it just like it's just one of the things that it just went right over my head.
Next one, you'll be ready.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more prepared for the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
But as far as puzzles, I was really jealous that Sarah got the puzzle she did when she was on Exile. Oh, I love those kinds of puzzles. I was messaging Sarah. I was like, I play those on the daily, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah,
it worked out for her.
Yeah, it did.
Was there anything else that surprised you watching the episodes back? Maybe a conversation somebody had or anything about the game?
I think the swap round was like a big one for me. The way that I like saw that round compared to like how it actually played out was a lot different for me. Like props to Emily because she played that swap round like crazy. And the way I saw it, I was like, oh, Emily is just this poor little girl who's all alone. And she's like, I just want someone to work with. And that's how I saw it, because that's how she was kind of approaching me. She's like, guys, please let me work with you. She's like, she seemed like she was like so willing to work with us, and that she like made it seem like she had no other options. And she did a really good job of like playing up the fact that she felt like she was on the bottom of her original tribe. And I was like, okay, well, this just makes it a no-brainer to pull her in versus vote her out. In that scenario, I was like, okay, let's pull her in. That's an extra number. We get out Selkirk. Lee comes back in. Sarah comes in. We got the numbers 4-2 if Emily sticks with us. And then obviously, I think one thing that kind of like I didn't realize obviously was the whole duo talk. So that was really interesting to watch back. Like I ironically was looking forward to the episode that I got voted out the most. I just need to see how this plays out. Like I want to see all the conversations that were happening. I was so
confused about the duos. I just gotta know.
Yeah, I was like, I just need to know like how this played out, and I was looking forward to it. So
you're the opposite to most people, to include myself. I never watch an episode if I've gotten voted out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One game, yeah, never watched.
The thing is, Austin wasn't the majority vote. So the thing is, they're not all discussing, all right, Austin this, Austin that, Austin the other thing. Like it was very much, all right, we're getting out Lydia. And they're just like, well, like Austin's a threat, right? Yeah, we're gonna write Austin. That's it. Like that was there's no like not back talking, but like talking behind Austin's back about him.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think like Jonathan and I are like in a very unique situation, like almost like a good situation where like we got idled out, so we don't even have like the opportunity to like feel bitter about it. So like for me, like that was the best way to go. I was like, yeah, go Lydia.
Yeah, and you go out because, you know, they think you're not like they're saying Austin's this big threat. It's like a compliment to you for being idled out. So it's like a very like, yes, goodbye.
Yeah.
But at this point, like if you getting voted out, like if you were able to put yourself like back in your headspace of okay, you just been voted out. Now you're on the jury. You haven't talked with Luke or Ben yet, but it's just like your gut right now. Was it always going to be like based off who was left? Was it your ride or die? Like if Sarah's at the end, I'm voting for her. Like did you have any like conceptions in your mind of like who you thought was playing the winning game?
Yeah. I don't know that I would say like any of my original tribe that I was like, if they make it to the end, they definitely, or like I would always vote for them. I think like being such a fan of Survivor, like that would have been like a disservice, you know, like I always went into like this game, and then even if I was on Survivor, I would always go in like with as open of a mind as possible, because I think that's what the game deserves, and we like each season deserves to have a winner that everybody like takes everything into consideration and bases their vote off of that. As far as like who I thought could win at this point, I mean, I think most of the cast has a chance, but at my boot. Like Jon's playing a great social game. I think Lowe's doing great. Lex is obviously up there too. I mean, you can make a case for anybody that's still left in the game, honestly.
Honestly, I love that answer.
My final question before we go to Facebook, or if the two lovely hosts have any, is if you could play a reality game, like a real reality game, whether it be like Family Feud or Amazing Race, with anybody from this cast, what game are you playing and who are you picking? Big question.
I'm gonna put Survivor off the table and pick something else.
Okay.
Let's go Ben on The Amazing Race.
That was my answer too, and I was like, I don't think you were answering this.
You guys balance each other out.
Yes.
He has a little of the chaos go, and you're like, all right, Ben, hold on.
Take it down a notch.
I do have a question before Facebook. What was one of your favorite challenges? Like, yes, I know you did well on the word puzzle and you won the other one, but that still might not be your favorite challenge. So,
That's a tough question. I enjoyed all the challenges.
One of those, but
yeah, I think the coconut chop one. Just because I didn't expect that to be something that I would win. And then for me to pull it out, I was like, okay, this is good.
Nice. And let's be real, it wasn't just you pulling it out. It was like you slayed it. Like even if they wanted to put stuff on you, like half the time you got 3 in, so they couldn't do anything.
No, okay, so when Ben hits all 3 the first round, I was like, oh, I'm getting 3 hits.
So what, like were you like internalizing all the shock of like he didn't put any on me?
Like, oh, now
what's
I'm
his game?
Now I'm offended. That's funny.
Alrighty, well, our first question is from Alex Trias. As of your boot, what season of Survivor would you compare Trinity Falls to?
This is a loaded question because
It
if
is.
I say the wrong answer, everyone's like, "Why would you compare a season to that season?"
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take the easy way out on this question, and we're gonna say Cambodia because Lydia with 2 successful idol plays,
Yeah.
well in the Wentworth. So we're just gonna
And I
we're
mean,
gonna
Lee's Wentworth does not count,
yes,
sure. I mean,
exactly.
it's all pointing
Well,
to Cambodia for sure.
yeah.
How often, from Luke, how often do you do word on scrambles? Do you play spelling bee on the New York Times? What's your strategy?
I don't play spelling bee. I still play Wordle. And I still play Words with Friends. So I am like very adversed in like word games. I play a lot of puzzle games on my phone, like on the daily. So yeah.
Awesome. From Lydia, favorite character on Lost?
Hurley.
Ben, my frenemy Austin, did you ever consider turning on the green 4? We see some of the others consider it, but seems like you were ready to stay strong with them until the end.
Yeah. I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but like I said, I was definitely had plans of making some moves at some point. I didn't have like, I wasn't dead set on staying 4 all the way to the end because I knew like deep down, because I felt like Jon was playing a better social game than I was, and then Lex I felt like was more connected, so was playing a really good social game. That like I was definitely willing to cut one of them at some point. Like had I made it past that vote, they probably would have been like towards the top of my list, like on my radar, because at that point we would be down to 7 people left, right? Yeah. So I was
now your sights are
yeah, Lex was definitely, I think Lex was probably at the top of my list for like 6 or 5, somewhere in there.
He also asks, since graphic design is your passion, what's your favorite font?
Oh boy, I could take the meme route and say Comic Sans or Papyrus. Speaking of Papyrus, if anybody wants to, if anyone else likes fonts and thinks of that kind of stuff, there's a really funny SNL skit from a few years ago with Ryan Gosling titled Papyrus. Go watch it. It's funny. Favorite font? Cooper Black is a good one.
Okay. Now, McKenna Inglis asks, rapid fire favorite questions. Color.
Blue.
Food.
Mac and cheese.
Movie.
Inception.
Yes, me too. Okay. Snack.
Pretzels.
Song or artist?
Really like One Republic and NF.
TV show.
Lost.
Drink.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Animal.
Dog.
There we go. All right.
Nice.
This is from Kylie Scruggs. What is your favorite thing that you've ever graphically designed?
So when I was in college, I had the opportunity to be it was one of my internships. And I was the layout editor for the school's literary arts journal. So I did the layout, the design, picked all the fonts and all that stuff, designed the cover, and got to put my touch on the journal for that semester. So that was a good one because I think it just like I loved the way it turned out, and then it like prepared me for like real life and putting myself in the industry because I got to like talk to like the vendors that were gonna like print the journal and all that stuff. So it was a really, really fun experience.
Awesome. And she worded her second question real weird. So I'm gonna just ask them in 2 separate ones, hoping one of them is correct. If you could play like any survivor, who would it be?
Hmm. I would say probably, and I think these were my answers on the who I'd play like
Mhm.
for the application, but I would probably say either Tommy Sheehan or Gavin Whitson, but like with some improvements.
Gotcha. And then if you could be any survivor, who would it you be?
Let's go with Tony.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Alrighty. Those are all for Facebook questions. Lily, back to you.
Yeah, so we always like to ask one question at the end of every exit, and that is if you could sum up your game in one word, what would it be and why?
Hmm. I've watched all the other exits and I was like, okay, I need to figure out a word going into this so I don't have to sit there and think. I don't know. I would probably say like unexpected for a lot of things. I think like I surprised myself as far as like how well I felt like I did being
Mhm.
my first game. Um, and I think I played like a pretty like under the radar game. And had I not gone out when I did, I felt like I had a pretty good shot to at least make it deep.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Awesome. I like it.
Well, Austin, we appreciate you allowing us to be your intro into the org community. We were so fortunate to have you on this cast, but that does wrap up today's exit interview. If you want to watch these exit interviews, we drop them every Wednesday and Saturday. Obviously, our episodes drop every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. with our recaps of John David Millsip on Sundays at 8 p.m. So make sure you like this video, press subscribe, and press that bell for all notifications. And if you want to follow us on all of our social media, you'll see it at the end of this video. Join our Facebook page, join our Instagram. Especially if you're on our Instagram, you'll get to see some of the secret scenes that McKenna mentioned earlier, as well as other fun posts that we like to put throughout the day, including some memes that involve the season. You will be seeing them throughout this week. I made one of them.
We got some good ones now that Austin's been idled out. So
yeah. So look out for that and join the Facebook page if you want to ask questions for the booted players. It's a great community. We'd love to have you. But that's Dynamic Character Productions, and we'll see you next time.